delay. So stop your way.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. This is episode 64. Today is Tuesday, August 8th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by our chief meteorologist, Mark Nelson, who's at home today. And I like the setup, Mark. How's it going over there?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We just decided it was time to move things downstairs. Basically, I wanted you out of my bedroom, Jeff. I think that's what it was about.
Yeah,
so we're downstairs, a little fireplace behind me, not running, of course, because we don't need the fireplace in midsummer, right?
Yeah, right. Well, the bummer about this is I feel like we're not going to get appearances from your cat, which likes to chill on your bed oftentimes.
Yeah, but everybody knows what a cat looks like. That's no biggie. Hey, we haven't talked forever, right? It's been a few weeks.
So update our viewers. You don't have to tell them exactly where you were, although I think you did on Facebook. Where have you been?
Well, do you need the address too?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, and we should also point out the ladies, each of them was doing something different today, so they couldn't join us. So it's just us. It's just the dudes. We went camping. My big thing in the summertime, or family thing, is that we go camping. We went camping with some friends up at Kingsley Reservoir, southwest of Hood River. New campground there, which is nice. I mean, it's been there a long time, but they did a big upgrade. And then down at Diamond Lake in the Southern Oregon Cascades. And Jeff, that was 8 days of camping. You know what I really missed? No thunderstorms.
Yeah, and we did have some over the weekend. It looked like some of them skipped over you when you were down at Diamond Lake.
Right. Oh, I could not believe, folks. Jeff texted me one morning, the morning we were leaving Diamond Lake, and he said, oh, there was a ton of flashing at like 2 a.m. or whatever it was, 1 a.m. along I-5. And apparently we missed it. Our heads are facing the other direction. We just have a small camping trailer. So I was mad that I missed it. Normal people, when they go camping, say, hey, hopefully it won't rain and there'll be no thunderstorms. But you and I would be like, oh, I hope I see some action overhead. But then I guess, Jeff, we left right after we de-pooed and headed out of there. My sister-in-law said they had a great thunderstorm at midday. So we missed it like by 3 hours.
Yeah, well, on one hand, we love the thunderstorms, right? But we don't want the lightning, of course. Those lightning strikes can lead to new fire starts. So I'm kind of glad that you didn't see a whole lot of action while you were camping.
And this is the time of year. People sometimes make fun of me at work, sometimes, for taking lots of vacation time in the summer. But I figure this is the deadest weather time of the year. What should I do? Take a week and a half vacation in January during a windstorm or a flood? No. So I like to be gone when the weather's slowest and the weather is nicest for getting outside.
Yeah. So I was thinking about the fact that you were camping and kind of the lack of smoke. I mean, we're going to get into some of the fire stats. Right. We'll bring up that morning briefing. I'm not sure if it's been updated in Oregon and Washington.
I checked.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll let you cover that in a little bit. But yeah, just not seeing a ton of smoke. The big smoke makers right now seem to be in the Cascades down in down in Southwest Oregon in the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little while. We're also going to go over the forecast. We have a itsy bitsy little chance of showers coming up. Not much. Morning models have been very unimpressive.
Weak sauce.
Yeah. And so I think we're more so going to focus on this potential heat wave, or likely a heat wave setting up starting this weekend. And then we have a weather term of the week, and a lot to cover here. So we'll kind of get the ball rolling. Let's start off with the fires, since you were camping and everybody was worried about you, sort of, not really.
There was nothing to be worried about. I had things handled. I'm a big boy.
Yeah. The two big fires right now in Oregon are the Flat Fire that's been burning since mid-July down in the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, Southwest Oregon. Mark, you'll tell us about the stats in a second. We've got the Bedrock Fire, Eastern Lane County, and then there's a new fire I just noticed on satellite imagery this morning. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, the 8th, and looks like they're calling it the Wiley Fire in Eastern Lynn County. So that's north of the Bedrock Fire. So maybe we can pull up satellite imagery and show our viewers that tune into the podcast with the video. By the way, did you notice it's on our website? The video is actually on the podcast tab on the weather page. So I clicked on there. That was typically where you could just get the audio version, but now our video version is not only there, And not only does it air on Fox 12 now, it's also on YouTube. So there are many ways you can get the podcast.
So many ways. And we should point out, I think the audio version comes out first. We send that out pretty quickly. And then the video typically is going to come out on a Friday afternoon about the time we put it out on Fox 12 now.
In fact,
I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah. The fastest way, if you're like a diehard Fox 12 weather podcast nerd, like the two of us, the fastest way you can get notified about it coming or going live is through our Fox 12 weather app. So if you search Fox 12 weather in your app store, if you haven't already downloaded it, we do a lot on that app. It's actually, and this is, yeah, Mark's bringing it up if you're watching the video version. We send out a push alert about when our podcast has been updated, but we send out videos like multiple times a day talking about the forecast and weather stats and things like that. If you ever want to track thunderstorms or snow later in the winter, let's say, there's a radar feature on there. So highly suggest you download it. It's better than your typical Apple weather app, which is just taking one computer model, spitting out the raw data, and then people are like, is it really going to be 108 next week? It's like
triggered. Somebody in the makeup room yesterday, I think it was Stephanie or Nora, said, oh, the news people are really excited. They're seeing huge numbers on their app. And I'm like, that's not what our app is showing. So yeah, that Apple app, I think it's just raw model data. I think that's it.
It for sure. I had somebody reach out yesterday or 2 days ago about that. So let's talk about the fire stats. Mark, I'll let you kind of cover the morning briefing here.
You mentioned the Bedrock Fire. That's the one that's been burning in Southwest Oregon and the Siskiyous, mostly uninhabited.
That's the flat fire.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I have them reversed, the flat fire. And that's 33,000 acres, but only in the last 24 hours, only a couple dozen acres of extra have burned. So that one's burning kind of slowly now. Bedrock Fire, that is the one, you're right, southeast of Eugene. 14,000 acres has gained 700 in a day. So we don't have raging fires right now. And it's interesting, sometimes on TV weather graphics, or you might see us on TV, and like last night I said there were three large fires burning. What does large mean? Well, apparently in general, Interagency Fire Center, a large fire is 100 acres or more in forest land, or 1,000 acres or more in brush or kind of brush grassland sort of thing. So sometimes there'll be a fire that doesn't make it on their list. Like the Priceboro fire is on there this morning, even though it's been burning for like 4 days. That's 300 acres east of Junction City, but things there are pretty much under control. Or, getting there, not officially under control, but 45% containment. And then you've got a new fire northeast of Oak Ridge. That's 100 acres. But yeah, your point is very valid, Jeff. Basically, there are only two huge fires burning in Oregon. They're not like raging out of control right now, but with a change in weather, that could change things a bit. And I did notice they put out a 7-day significant fire potential, and it's lower than average risk for a large fire to blow up through Friday, but then the risk goes up to about normal over the weekend across much of the state, or above normal once we get into early next week, and that's related to the heat. So we're good for a few more days, but these fires could turn much more active.
Are you seeing the satellite imagery that I pulled up?
Oh no, let me. I'm looking at my own stuff here. Oh yeah, look at that.
Okay, so
there you go.
Can you see my cursor?
I sure can. Yeah, I can see.
Cool. All right, so this is Lane County right here, and the big smoke maker this morning is clearly the Bedrock Fire.
Right, right.
So it looks like most of the surface level smoke, just from observation, is in the Cascades, and some of the mid to upper level smoke is drifting off to the west-southwest. So they actually shrunk up that air quality advisory mark for just Deschutes County. So it was
right.
They had it all over the place. They had it for like Lake County and Klamath County. So smoke has been, well, more or less at a minimum over the past few days compared to last week, where it was just kind of billowing and moving east. But I hardly see anything down in Southwest Oregon related to that.
Pretty quiet.
Flat fire. And then just to the north of the Bedrock Fire, you can see that plume right there in eastern. It's like southern Lynn County. That's the Wiley Fire they're calling, which supposedly either broke out yesterday or was spotted yesterday. And as of yesterday, it burned like a couple acres. But that looks, when we can see a pretty visible plume on satellite imagery like this, it's usually more than a couple acres. So
I would agree. Pretty smoky around Sweet Home. That's right around Sweet Home area.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a really helpful tool. I'm going to actually exit out of this now and go back to our normal screen here. Yeah. nice that we can do that.
So that's your fire summer. Many years we've had pretty quiet through, early or mid-August, and then the pattern changes and suddenly, bang, fires take off. But other years, like 2 weeks from now, the third week of August, we get a cool, showery trough comes through, and then the fires never really tick off. So we never know. It's like a box of chocolates, right? Like the Forrest Gump thing. Fire season is like a little box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a little odd, but the analogy works. Some years, I think it was 2019, we had showers at the end of August. Then things just kind of petered out. We didn't have any significant fires or east wind events. So,
did you hear
fingers are crossed?
Yeah, no doubt. Did you hear the news package that we ran yesterday? We were quoting a fire official that there have been roughly 4 times the man-made fires this year.
Yes.
Compared to like lightning started fires.
Stop starting fires in the woods, folks. Cigarette butts, dragging chains, a camping trailer or utility trailer, just chains dragging can set off sparks. Trains can do it. So stop lighting stuff on fire in the woods, folks. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's accidental, but yeah.
And we could very well get through this season without anything huge, any kind of big, massive smoke, events.
Sure.
If now that being said, if there's a lightning event later in the summer heading into the fall, that could change everything. But I don't see anything, the big heat ridge that's going to bring us this next heat wave is building out of the west. The one that came out of the east late last week into the weekend, that brought the monsoonal moisture up. That brought that southerly flow. There was an upper level of disturbance that kicked off showers and thunderstorms. By the way, that the cloud cover was a nightmare this past weekend. That we had 9.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, what happened to the heat wave, Jeff? If I was here, I would have known all about that, and my forecast would have been totally different. I would have nailed the forecast.
Kidding. So we had 90 and 90.
What a nightmare!
You're killing me. No, we had our highs Friday when I left work. It was 90 and 90, and I was already thinking to myself, man, there's a lot more cloud cover than I was thinking. We sure enough ended up at 84 and 83 Saturday and Sunday with that monsoonal moisture that spilled. By the way, that ended our dry streak too, which nobody's complaining about that, right?
1/100th of an inch.
What solid a waste. 100th. Yeah, 0.01, folks. What a soaker.
Yeah. Dry spell is over. 47 days. That was it. So the count has begun once again. Yes. We're at day. Wait, what's today? We're recording this on Tuesday, but we're at day 1, 2, or 3, or 4, depending on when you're listening to this, folks.
Yeah. Mark, I was looking actually at some of the August stats so far.
Right.
Through the first 7 days of August, Portland is experiencing its 4th warmest August on record. Astoria, first warmest, or the warmest through the first 7 days. And if I'm not mistaken, Salem is experiencing its 5th warmest. So we haven't necessarily seen extreme heat, but we've had some really warm nights, and that was because of the cloud cover that we saw over the weekend and Monday morning as well.
What do we have? We had a 69 on Saturday morning, a 67 on Sunday morning,
which
then
was
a 68. Yeah, which was a tie. 68 on Monday morning. So those first and third numbers were record warm lows from that cloud cover.
With Sundays was a tied record, which is not a big deal. Not a big deal. I mean, I'm just asterisk.
What a nitpicker.
I tweeted. No. I tweeted it out, and a weather nerd in the community here reached out and they were like, "I think we tied Sunday." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
God bless him.
That really skews the numbers, though. Like
it does.
We've only hit the 80s, so I mean, maybe we had 190 actually. 190. The rest have been mid to upper 80s.
Maybe.
So that has brought us to through the first 7 days, 4th warmest August. Obviously we have a lot of time for that to change or to go up. And in fact, things do look like they're going to trend up. Before that happens, though, weak upper level system is going to come through between tonight and tomorrow. So that's going to help drag a weak front through. I would even hesitate to call it a cool front. Definitely not a cold front. Cool front, It's more like a
wiggle in the flow.
A disturbance, yeah. A disturbance
in the weather force overhead, maybe something like that. It's like just a wiggle, and I call it the jet stream, but I keep saying, and people probably get annoyed by this on air this time of year. I say, well, there's not really a jet stream this time of the year, but there's still a flow from west to east generally, and so this little wiggle in the jet stream moves by on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and it'll bring it looks like a few light showers between midnight and midday tomorrow. Best chance at seeing like maybe a few hundredths of an inch of rain will be northern Oregon, southern Washington coast, parts of the Coast Range, interior Southwest Washington, northern Oregon, southern Washington Cascades. We probably won't see much at all metro area southward. And if we do, it's probably going to do what it did to my car over the weekend, which is a complete mess.
Spots? Were there wet spots? Dried up?
Yeah, spots. Mark, spots on top of the coffee that I spilled because I left my tumbler on the top of the car driving away late last week. So yeah,
was that at 2 a.m.? Like at 2 a.m. when you left for work? Was it on there, or was it later in the day?
Embarrassed to say that it was when I was leaving work to come home.
I'll pull it together.
Yeah, I know. I'm a complete mess. So
did you see? I saw on the carpet at work there was a spot going up the stairs where it looks like somebody. Well, we know somebody didn't die, but there was like near the top of the stairs. Walk up there, and brand new carpet we have in the last year or so, and there's a huge stain right across the carpet. Like, oh, somebody slipped and dropped their entire coffee on that new carpet. Don't do that, folks.
They better not ban. To my colleagues at work, please don't drop any more coffee on the carpets, because I don't want them to ban coffee at work, because then I will be up the creek on that morning show.
Yeah, we're not banning coffee. I once had a boss say when we had it's not our current boss, it was a previous one. And he came in, I think we had a new weather set. It was the previous set, Jeff. And he said, and I don't want any eating in here. And I go, mm-hmm. And like 3 weeks later, we were eating. It's like, we got to be here all the time. I'm eating out here. So we're careful, though. When there are crumbs, we try to clean them up. So anyway, we diverge a bit from the main point here. Yeah.
Okay. So next few days, like I would say today, tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, low to mid 80s, maybe upper 80s by Friday, somewhere around there. Just, normal summertime warmth or August warmth. Overnights are going to be mild inner urban areas, cooler outlying spots. And then,
by the way, Jeff, I don't want to start a whole new discussion about this because, you and I could talk for hours. Oops. But you talk about the warm nights. We should point out, and maybe we can talk about this in more detail next week, that there's a marine heat wave occurring offshore, very warm ocean waters. And I noticed the coastline is seeing warm nights as well. So I think that's beginning to affect our nights. So we'll see over the next few weeks if we continue with this really warm stuff at night.
Briefly, just going to mention, like, that's been, 30 to 50 miles offshore or something like that, or even farther than that. But then the upwelling right offshore has helped to keep things cooler.
For now,
all sorts of calls. Yeah, for now. The warmer, I think that upwelling is probably kind of weakening, and that warmer water is starting to work its way toward the coastline. So yeah, that could certainly affect. And what's interesting? September and October, from what I understand, from what I remember, aren't those the warmest months along the Oregon coast?
Just barely, yeah. Probably because you mix in some offshore wind events where the easterly wind makes it. Yeah, they are slightly warmer for sure in California, but for us too, a little bit.
That may really skew the numbers if the overnight lows are going up with that warmer water. So we'll wait.
Maybe we can. Excuse me. Maybe we can take a deep dive on that next week.
Yeah,
marine heat wave.
That sounds great. I mean, the heat wave doesn't sound great, but the discussion sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this weekend and next week, Mark.
All right.
We've teased about 5 times to it. We're expecting a pretty large high pressure system to build up and down the West Coast. And almost all summer, Mark, the high pressure systems have been like around the Four Corners, kind of meandering, and we've been on the northwest edge, and it's brought periods of moderate heat to us, but nothing extreme because it kind of backs off at times. We'll get more onshore flow and a little bit more marine air. But this time around, the ridge is building out of the Pacific. It's going to kind of build up and down the West Coast into British Columbia. And models have kind of been at odds the past few days. We've been going back and forth like, what is well, I think last night I texted you right before I crashed. And I was like, the morning models yesterday, I think between the GFS and the ensembles and the Euro and its ensembles were like 10 to 15 degrees different during the peak heat next week.
The GFS was saying what heat wave, and the Euro was saying, oh, it's going to get real hot. And so did the Canadian. The Zero Z Canadian was very hot as well. The ensembles, the average of all the different members. Yeah.
So the Euro has been hinting at maybe multiple days of triple-digit heat. At times, like 105 to 110, maybe 1 or 2 days. But the GFS, which is the American model, has been more so like, several days in the 90s. The Canadian has kind of been in between. And this morning, when those 6Z runs came out, here we go. Mark's bringing it up. Actually,
I pulled up the wrong one.
Okay,
I can't do anything right, Jeff. I'm going to try again. What did you say about the morning?
Yeah, like the overnight models and like the 6Z runs were looking a little bit more in line. At least the GFS came out at 6Z. I compared that to the 0Z Euro run, and it's a little bit more consistent as far as where the ridge placement is. Initially the GFS model was like the ridge is going to be way offshore. Now it's kind of like working its way back over the West Coast.
Oh, now it's coming back. The GFS. Did you just say that one more time? Did you say the GFS is now coming back in line?
I think what I ended our text messages with last night was like, I wonder which one's going to win out here. And it looks like the GFS is coming in line with the Euro, which has been pretty consistent. Yeah.
Here, actually, look at this. I know the numbers are small, folks, but I think you can kind of see what's going on here.
It's loading. Hold on. Let's see if it.
Oh, you can't see it?
Mark's pulling up the raw numbers here. Still has the ... there.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm going to have to call Elon Musk. His Starlink internet apparently is lagging out here in the country. Well, what I will say is we're just because some people, if you're listening to the podcast like I do, you can't see it anyway. We're just looking at all 50 ensemble members of the European every 6 hours, the maximum temperature. And if you can see it, but I'll describe if you can't. What you see, since it's all color-coded, forget the numbers, it's just color-coded. What you clearly see is much warmer temperatures turning very hot. So probably around Sunday. Sunday's the kind of the start there. You see a lot of those. Well, I'm kind of colorblind, but it's what's that kind of grayish, reddish color, whatever that is. You see 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 days that are a lot of the members are around 100 or more. So I think we may have a real heat wave this time if the Euro is correct. And you said the GFS was a little closer this morning, or no, the 6Z was a little closer.
Well, the numbers weren't like that extreme, but the placement of the ridge was a little bit closer. So it might be kind of resolving themselves to, a West Coast ridge.
The Canadian was very hot as well, like the Euro. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say we're headed well into the 90s. Feel very confident with that. Right.
The way I described it this morning was I would expect 90s Sunday through most of the work week. So potentially 90 plus heat, I-5 corridor from Sunday to Friday. There could be 1 to 3 days peppered in with highs at and above 100.
Which is what we did that, I think, the middle of last August. Which I think you've got a graphic coming up here maybe about August. But last August was really hot, the hottest month on record here, right?
I looked at last August. We had 11 days in the month of August at and above 90, and we had 2 days that were at and above 100.
And I think that was at mid-month. I think that we had a heat wave in the middle of the month because we set the warmest August low temperature on record. It was 73 at mid-month, which was pretty late in the season to have a record warm low temperature in PDX. It was like mid-August. So this would not be unprecedented, but if this is correct, we'll definitely have some first alert weather days, which is, to grab your attention and to say, hey, this is a bigger deal than what we've seen so far this summer.
And, if you think about a high pressure system, just imagine kind of like a circular system sitting above us. Some people call it a heat dome. Some call it a ridge of high pressure, but the air flows clockwise around the ridge. So as the ridge is building in, we're going to have kind of a northerly flow. Right. And I think it's possible that we could get a little bit of smoke coming in from the north out of British Columbia if those fires are pretty active.
Ooh, I didn't think of that. You're right. If the flow was just like that.
So,
make sure I get that
after the past few summers, Mark, it's hard to not include the thought, okay, we could have smoke around if we have a heat wave, and that might affect the high temperatures.
Good catch. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're right. Yeah.
And any new fires that might break out could also lead to smoky days. The air becomes more unstable when we turn really hot under these high pressure ridges. So if a new fire were to break out, it would be in an unstable air mass. It could grow pretty quickly. And any existing fires could also.
One thing we don't see so far with this upcoming possible heat wave or probable heat wave, the orientation of the upper ridge doesn't look right to give us a big thermal trough west of the Cascades where we get a gusty east wind. That seems unlikely. I mean, that could change, but this may be just one where it's kind of a northerly wind, northeast, and we don't get it. We don't get that sharp, low-level surface thermal trough over west of the Cascades or at the coastline. It doesn't look like it's going to be that way. This could be one of. Maybe I'm wrong. Did you see something that looks different?
No. Keep your thought going.
And in those kind of heat waves, I've noticed we tend to be a little more humid.
Oh, you mean with a light onshore breeze potentially as opposed to the offshore?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
One thing I was thinking about, Mark, is the GFS past couple of days has been hinting at the ridge, the circular high pressure system, more so being over the Pacific Ocean as opposed to being over the West Coast.
Right.
And it was hinting at some inside sliders coming through.
Yeah, I don't like that. That worries me for forecasting because that, just like in winter where, the ridge is going to be over us. Nope. Suddenly models have a trough dropping down, upper level trough coming down the Canadian coastline. And suddenly we're not in the heat wave business. So that could suddenly cut things off at some point, or we'll see.
What else would it do, Mark? Potentially. It could also
what?
It could also potentially bring a strong offshore wind, like multiple layers in the atmosphere.
If it's farther east, yeah. But I was thinking if it drops right down over us, then we're back into.
I didn't mean to test
stuff.
you, by the way, but but that's kind of my worry. Is
so early.
We have no sign of like a big summer ending rain, and if we were under a scenario where this ridge was kind of like meandering along the west coast and then moved back on over the Pacific Ocean, we could have something slide through the upper Intermountain West or something, and that could lead to what we don't want to see.
Yeah, a cool high pressure dropping down through southern Canada to our east, and that gives you the big offshore flow. September 2020 was an extreme example of that, where we had cool high pressure drop down through the Rockies, and suddenly we were into a strong easterly flow, which wasn't cool for us. It was like 95 degrees, but that's bad stuff. We don't want that. We tend to see that as we get into late August and September. If it's going to happen, that's the time of the year.
Yeah, so that's kind of something that's on our radar is, heat, but also the possibility of something sneaky happening like that. But at this point, I see no real reason to warn the public, like, okay, we have the possibility of a big east wind.
Right.
And again, we've been fairly lucky. Fire season has been kind of slow to start. It's been like non-existent down in California because of their big drought busting rain and mountain snow that they had this past season, winter.
Yeah, they had a cooler than average start to summer, didn't they? Parts of the U.S. did have.
Yeah.
So,
so that's kind of like the expectations. We don't want to put like a hard number on the forecast coming up because it's all up in the air at this point. 90s, I would expect a stretch of 90s, maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 on the extreme end. Triple digit heat days coming, but
I figure when we look at the what we call the 850 Weather Geek Talk here, folks, that's what we do. 850 millibar temps, a temperature around 4,000 to 5,000 feet in Celsius, and we were seeing lots of like low 20s. So I'm kind of on the ensemble averages. So low 20s, it's like, that's up around 100 or so. Did I see the Euro, the operational model of the Euro had like a plus 25?
Yes, you did.
I saw that for the next. Now that would be like well into the low to mid 100s. That would be really hot stuff. So we hope we can avoid that. But either way, they're in pretty good agreement. We've probably got some low 20s coming up. So if it's in the low 70s up at 5,000 feet, once that air mass, once it's all mixed down perfectly, that gives you about 100, 105 down here in the lowlands. So that's why we're kind of confident, feeling better. Like, okay, it could get really hot this time, like higher than the 98 that we've seen so far this season.
Yep. Just be prepared for some heat. Of course, the best way to know like what we are forecasting, like our weather team, is to download our app, and you'll see that update multiple times a day.
Or watch us on TV.
Or you can stream us.
Yeah. Stream us. Boy, talk about Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry, X, formerly known as Twitter. Boy, that's annoying. Uh, did your post go through today, Jeff?
No.
So, folks, so we don't know exactly what's going on because we're just lowly meteorologists, but apparently it's all across the USA. Um, we use our weather systems to push out information to, most of us call it Twitter. Now it's called X. So would it be a zeet instead of a tweet? I don't know what it would be. Or would it be a sheet? I don't know. So anyway, so we automatically push stuff out through our weather systems, which makes things really convenient. We make videos and whatnot, warnings, watches, whatever. And starting late last week, suddenly that wasn't working. And something has changed within X or Twitter. And so only randomly, some of our stuff is going out. Some of it is not, folks. And so, Jeff, somehow 2 of yours made it out yesterday morning, but I did 1 or 2 yesterday, and Katie did 1, and they did not make it through.
Yeah. And what's odd about that is mine didn't work this morning either. And the problem with that is a lot of meteorologists in our community like to use Twitter for warning the public about severe weather.
Right.
And yesterday, for example, there was a huge severe weather outbreak on the East Coast or in the eastern United States. And a lot of meteorologists had to shy away from Twitter because they couldn't directly post their radar updates and things like that. Their tornado warnings are easily from their computers. Yeah. It requires extra steps, and sometimes you just don't have that much time to warn the public. So that's kind of an issue, but we'll see. I think he's getting a lot of pushback. Hopefully things get adjusted.
So.
Otherwise, we're just going to have to focus on other platforms and things like that. But do you have anything else, or do you want to transition to the weather term of the week?
Oh, let's do weather term of the week.
Okay.
We got lots of time here.
This is our 4th, Mark. Yeah, and you weren't here for the last one.
I listened on the way to work on Sunday. I was like, I wonder what those guys talked about. And it was a really good podcast, all about gardening. I heard all that at the end.
Oh, man.
Good stuff.
All right. So this week's weather term of the week is evaporative cooling.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Evaporative cooling.
And believe it or not, everybody knows what evaporative cooling is, even though you may not know the definition off the top of your head. I'll explain why, but I'm going to give you a quick definition. Evaporative cooling is a cooling of the air due to latent heat absorption, just stick with me here, of water molecules. When water evaporates, the evaporation process requires taking heat from the environment, right? So
right.
Water's evaporating, takes some heat from the environment. And in order for the evaporation to occur, it actually, in turn, cools the air. So snatching that heat from the environment through that process, the water evaporates, then all of a sudden it's cooler. So, Mark, I know you have a swimming pool in the backyard.
In fact, can you hear that droning noise? The pump turned on. You're not supposed to have noises behind you when you're recording. Can you hear that or no?
No, I can't.
Okay, good.
No.
I'll leave it alone.
So Mark's pool is nearby, and I don't have a pool here, but every morning when I get out of the shower, immediately grab the towel because I'm kind of chilly. And Mark, I assume when you get out of the pool, even if it's a warm summer day, you feel a little bit chilly as well. Is that right?
That's right. It feels kind of chilly because the evaporative cooling is happening.
Right, because the water on your skin is starting to evaporate, and as it evaporates, it cools the air or the air right on your skin. In fact, that's one of the reasons that we sweat. It's to help to regulate the heat. On a really hot day, your body produces that water so that it will evaporate and that it will cool your skin. And the problem in a really humid environment, let's say if you spent any time in Texas or Louisiana or Florida this summer, or anywhere on the East Coast for that matter, in that really humid environment, as you're sweating, the water doesn't evaporate as effectively.
Nope.
So you
just get wet.
Yeah, you just stay, soggy. And so it's actually much more dangerous to be in a humid environment, a hot, humid environment for a long period of time because your body just can't regulate its temperature as well. Yeah.
So that's in the summertime. So you want dry air if you want the evaporation to be cooling you. So all across the West, even when you drive into Central Oregon, some people will have swamp coolers, which are those big square things often on the top of a house or in a window. And did I call that right? Swamp
cooler or evaporative cooler.
Swamp cooler. And so what that does, that's the water runs through that thing, and as air is sucked into the house, it cools the air. That's assuming the air mass is dry. If it's humid, it won't do any good. Like you would never use a swamp cooler in a swamp, right? But it works pretty well in the dry West. So it's pretty helpful.
My dad actually has one. He lives down in the desert Southwest, but I'll tell you this: nobody has them east of the Rockies because you just have too many humid days and they're like ineffective. They actually make the environment worse in your house. It makes it feel disgusting. But something to note: evaporative cooling is important for forecasting.
In winter, right? You're talking about winter.
Winter, and in terms of, let's say we got a quick shower in a heat wave, Mark.
Sure.
It could cool the air. All of a sudden, we go from 95 to 88. That's not the most important time, though. Let's say, Mark, that it's 36 degrees.
Uh-oh.
And a shower comes in. Shower comes in. Yeah.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it starts raining.
And what's the dew point? Let's say the dew point is very low. Let's say it's 20 degrees.
Yeah.
Very dry air. Okay.
And all of a sudden, it starts raining. And temperature drops to 35, 34, 33, 32. All of a sudden, it's 31 at the surface. And the rain is still falling, and the surface is cooling below freezing. All of a sudden, what kind of precipitation are we seeing?
Freezing rain.
That's right. Yep. So
that's because it was warmer above. So that's a problem in the winter. If it's the drier the air mass is, and it starts precipitating, the more the temperature will drop when the precipitation begins, especially if the precipitation is solid and pretty continuous. We've seen that a lot of times. Like, for example, if the dew point, a good trick is, let's say it's 38 degrees when the precipitation begins. It's going to go on for a while. And the temperature is 20. What's that? That's an 18-degree difference between. Did I just say the temperature is 20? If the air temperature is 38, dew point is 20. So there's an 18-degree spread. The temperature, a good kind of rule of thumb, not always, but a rule of thumb is the temperature will drop about a third of that distance. So that would be 6 degrees. So that's 38. So you're down to about freezing.
So that was a good number. Good choice there. Good example.
That was random. I'm kind of out of winter mode. I'm sure if we were doing this in January, we'd have a better idea. But that or with snow. So we see that quite a bit in the metro area, or many areas, but metro area when we're approaching an ice or snow situation. Like, how dry is the air going to be down below? If it's a low dew point, it can cool off quite a bit.
So in a desert environment, so that difference, by the way, between a temperature and a dew point is called the dew point depression.
Yeah, now we're getting hardcore. 37 minutes in, folks. We're talking dew point depressions.
Did we just create a second weather term of the week?
Dew point depression, yeah.
All right, nice. Killing two birds with one stone here.
So larger dew point depression, the temperature is going to fall farther.
Yeah, that's right. So
farther.
we're
maybe
meteorologists.
further because farther is distance.
So yeah, just think about it in terms of like just getting out of the shower. That's the most obvious way to remember evaporative cooling. Every time you get out of the shower, it's chilly, even if you were in a hot shower. And that's because the water is evaporating off your skin. Same thing happens whenever it rains or just, precipitation evaporates from the sky. So that's your weather term of the week. Hopefully you're learning something new during these podcasts and, of course, taking something out of the forecast when we talk about that too. So, Mark, I think that's about all we got for our friends today.
I think we've covered quite a bit. You are working next week, right? Yes.
Yeah, so I'll be off. Programming note, I'll be off. I've got some family coming into town, so I'll be off
the following week.
Wednesday to Tuesday. I'll be back Wednesday of next week.
Yeah. You're off Wednesday. Oh, you're off this Wednesday to next Tuesday.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'm off next week as well, so we will see how it goes. Although heat waves are pretty easy to forecast, folks. It's sunny and the number goes up.
They're easy until you have monsoonal moisture or smoke involved, right?
Oh, yeah. Let's not go back there again, Jeff. You gave it your best. Let's not beat a dead horse, as they say.
Easy for you to say, camping out in the Cascades, not even paying attention.
I just came in and cleaned up afterwards, cleaned up your mess. I'm just kidding.
Get out of here. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for episode 64 of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. We'll be back next week with an update on what the heat wave has been doing. Enjoy the nice weather while it lasts and get ready for the heat to crank up. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you later.
Please tell us about the weather right away.